Hello and welcome. Following the fresh strikes between US and Iran, what does this mean for oil prices? We have already witnessed a 2.5% spike in global oil rates. What does this mean going forward for global oil prices, the entire commodity market in particular, as well as inflationary trends? Well, to decode all of that, I'm joined by Ujjwal Krishna. He is an academic fellow. He is also someone who is part of the University of Melbourne's Australia India Institute. Ujjwal, thank you for this exclusive interaction with Times Now Digital. Thank you for your time. I would like to begin by asking you that what does this mean now? This fresh spike in oil rates following the latest escalation. Does this mean that the world needs to brace for a sustained rally in oil prices?
Hey, thanks, actually. Yeah, as we've seen that the ongoing deadlock between the US and Iran in terms of negotiations um, is a continuing feature, and and this is very closely tied to the oil price escalation, as you mentioned. Um, we also know that at this point, India imports roughly more than 85% of its crude oil, and all of these transactions are done in US dollars. So, what we've also heard from the Indian point of view that the slide of the rupee relative to the US dollar continues. This is a concerning feature. But we've also seen the government very keen. The RBI is also facing, political pressures to aggressively intervene in the currency markets to maintain the level of the rupee, which is politically sensitive to do so. But at the same time, we've also seen other like macroeconomists, even former RBI governors, who have argued that it's more feasible to let the rupee find its rate amidst this geopolitical tension and the uncertainty and volatility in oil prices at the moment. And also to be careful about the fact that an excess of market intervention, currency markets intervention, could possibly lead to could harm India's exports. We are seeing, at least in the realm of economists, there is a divergence of opinion arising. So basically, on the whole, it's India is not at a balance of payments crisis level situation. It's not reached to that point, but in the short term, it's not. The concerns are not as huge. But if this persists and the Strait of Hormuz continues to be held hostage, then in the medium term to long term, this will lead to inflationary pressures, both in terms of retail inflation and wholesale price inflation.
Should the world at the moment, India and the world, brace for more oil shocks then, Ujjwal?
I think it's on the policy front, it would be sensible to be prepared for anything, because at this point we've seen that this crisis is purely tied to a political situation, and a political situation where actors are increasingly unstable and are not really willing to engage fruitfully, meaningfully. I mean, we know that Pakistan recently has tried to step in and ease negotiations between Iran and the US, but we've also seen that not really going very far. I think it's quite important at the moment to be prepared for the geopolitical situation to possibly take a turn for the worse. And if this continues, as I said, this will become a persistent problem, and inflation will very much be something top of mind in Delhi.
Right. In these uncertain and fragile times globally, Ujjwal, what would your message be to policymakers, to governments at large? Because the marginalized, really, whether it's India or elsewhere, it's the marginalized that are facing that inflationary pressure, whether it's for their fuel rates or for their daily essentials. So, your message to policymakers at the moment and to governments across the globe at the moment.
I think at the moment it's important for policymakers to the extent possible, be upfront and clear to the people of India about the extent of the problem that's faced, and perceptions management can only go so far because people on the ground feel the rise in prices and the impact that it is having on their lives. So to that extent, I think it's important to have a degree of authenticity in the communication, but also to make sure that oil reserves I mean, the government is taking action to make sure that the oil needs of people are not going to be are not going to be in a lot of trouble. So that is something that needs to happen. But also, it's also important to stress that being alarmist is also not a solution. We don't want this to lead to panic situations, and it's also important to, which is why I come back to the fact that it's important to have more plain speak and also at the same time preparing for potentially problematic situations.
Prepare for potentially problematic situations. Don't be an alarmist, is really what your message is. Thank you so much for joining us for this exclusive interaction and for sharing your thoughts on Times Now Digital.
Thanks, Sakshi.